気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 42 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J, and with me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm all right, man. It's very humid here.
Very
which is
humid.
Which is not awesome.
Thankfully, at least over by me, it's no longer hot, but it's like
it is.
75 and humid, which is about as hot as it can be without humid being very bad.
Yeah, it's definitely cooling off. Now, listen, everybody who knows me, I would say, or listens to this show, knows that I am a huge booster for Cleveland. Love it here. The
Absolutely.
one thing I will say is that big parts of what are now Cleveland historically were part of a geographical feature called the Great Black Swamp.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can get humid.
It can get a little muggy.
I would say. It can get muggy. But aside from that, I'm good, man.
Right on. You know what else is good, Dave? It's Denji Sentai Megaranger. We're watching an episode today. It's episode 42 called Lose Them, The Evil Pursuers. But of course, before we get into that, Dave, it's a good episode. But before we can talk about it...
Extremely good.
Before we can talk about it, Dave, of course, we have our officially award-winning opening segment. Dave, shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. What is our first star of the week?
First star of the week, Matt, is I'm on summer break.
Nice.
Which is cool. It is. It's very, very nice. It's very nice. I want to put this as a little bit of a PSA. I've started to change my nomenclature, or my phrasing, I guess, around summer break, which is I am currently in the middle of my annual layoff. Just so everybody's clear, I don't get paid for this time.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, people, I know a lot of people are like, oh, teachers on, break all summer. That's true. I don't get paid for this. This is just, I'm a contract employee, so I am technically employed in a sense. I can't claim unemployment for summer. There's clauses in unemployment law about all right, listen, we know that you're not working right now, but you have a reasonable expectation that you're going to be reemployed, But this is just downtime for me. I could go get another job. I'm not going to. I could go get another job, but I'm not. I don't get paid for summer break. But I am on summer break now, and I am enjoying it, which is very nice. So once a week during the summer, I checked my email.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case there's
honestly, overkill.
Yeah, well, I got it on my phone, right? So, I pull it up, and that honestly partly is to just, get rid of all the spam so that I'm not rolling into, 500 or 800, 900 spam messages when I get back on the fall.
Fair.
Yeah, but so I log in once a week, just in case there's something that that is important, whatever. And I did get an alert from Google Classroom that a student just today, literally earlier today, Wednesday, school has been out for almost a week, turned in their research essay that was due the last day of school.
Dave, I was going to say better late than never, but I'm not actually sure that's true in this case.
Yeah, well, it's indifferent late than never. It's not better or worse. It doesn't matter. I did have one. This happened, I think, 2 years ago. I had a parent email me. I think it was either the end of June or the end of July. But to ask, if I was going to go back and grade their kids' work that they had turned in late. And again, I do think it was the end of July. And I just, I didn't even email back. I was just I don't even know what to do with this.
Right.
Lady, the school year's been over. The school year's over, man. it's over when it's over. I did so.
It's like, I know I lost at the baseball game, but I went to batting practice later, and I feel like I had some good hits in.
I did. I scored a home run afterwards, and I think that should count. I did have, so my kid can have something called an individual education plan for, a special need or something like that.
Sure, any number of reasons.
And it just says, okay, yeah, any number of reasons. And it's great because it's a tool we can use to help keep things equitable for kids that need help. That's fine. And a really common accommodation that kids will have on an IEP is that they get extra time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, it takes, little Johnny, he gets time and a half. So if the kids had a week to do the assignment, he gets a week and a half. Totally fine. Great. Happy to do it. And it was like towards the end of the school year, right? There were like 3 or 4 weeks left of the school year. And this kid, his mother is an attorney who specialized in specifically education law. Like that was her field, right? And the kid hadn't turned anything. He was bombing all of his classes because nothing was turned in, right? And so she turns to us. So we're all in this meeting, and she turns to us and she's like, "Well, has he been getting his time and a half? Has he been getting his extra time?" And I just I was so flabbergasted that I looked at the lady and I was like, well, yes, but that doesn't generate time. The school year is still over when it's over. An IEP doesn't manipulate the fabric of space-time. It's not a TARDIS, lady. It just means that a kid has leeway. It was
right.
It was one of the craziest things I had ever heard in a meeting. But yeah, so did I violate any laws telling that story? I think if I had identified the kids, I could get in big trouble. But anyways, so yeah, the school year's over, and I am just I'm just hanging out. I took the kids to IKEA yesterday. We just went down by ourselves. They were extraordinarily good. IKEA was dead, which was awesome.
Dude, I mean, okay, we're gonna talk about IKEA in a later star, so maybe keep your powder dry on that one.
Okay, well, I'll back up off IKEA. I just love IKEA. Anyways, man, that's the first star of the week. I'm just I'm chilling. I'm chilling
cool,
in
man.
Summer. I'm not chilling. It's very warm and humid, but I am enjoying my break so far.
So what is our second star of the week?
Matt, our second star of the week, as it so frequently is these days, it's Bun Vulcan. Welcome to Bun Vulcan. So I actually have 2 Bun Vulcans. Well, I mean, it's one segment, I guess, but I have 2 things.
Sure.
So the first thing is that I made maybe the best chocolate cake I've ever made.
Really?
Yeah. It was the last week of school, and I was like, oh, see, this was last week. Last week was the last week of school. Mom and Dad weren't helping you with the house. That's why we didn't have an episode. It was just a crazy week. So anyways, I was like, it's the last week of school. Let me bring in, I'll make something to bring in, right? Because I'm trying to not have cake around my house, but I do still like to make cakes and other stuff. So I was like, this is great. I'll make a thing and I'll bring it in. And I used Claire Saffitz's from Dessert Person. I used her recipe for chocolate cake. And also she has a great recipe for chocolate French buttercream. And I had never made French buttercream before. Yeah. And her version of French buttercream is, there's no cocoa in it. You just melt chocolate and then basically pour cooled off but still liquid chocolate into French buttercream. The French buttercream turned out great. French buttercream, if you're curious, is you basically, you whip whole eggs and then you stream sugar syrup into that, and it kind of fluffs up. And it doesn't make a meringue because it has yolk in it, but it does fluff up quite a bit. And then you put room temperature butter into that, and it's basically like a sweet, eggy, solidy, buttery thing. It's amazing. And then you just put chocolate in it. One change I did make, she calls for semi-sweet, and I used dark.
Okay.
And then I made a dark chocolate mousse from Jackie Pfeiffer's book to put in between the layers of the cake. So it wasn't super sweet because I used dark chocolate instead of semi-sweet. But it was like intensely chocolatey, not too sweet. Great texture. The mousse was awesome, and the chocolate or the chocolate buttercream was a triumph. I felt amazing about it.
That sounds awesome, dude.
So that's my first Bun Vulcan. Now, lest I be accused of simply bragging about strength under strength, I made another cake, and it was the worst cake I've ever made. So here was the idea behind this cake. Brown butter,
supposed to
of
be
course,
good.
is like... It was supposed to be good. That was the idea behind it.
It's a good idea.
You know brown butter, of course, is where you saute butter and you kind of cook the milk solid. So you get this sort of like toffee-ish, nutty... it's incredible. Brown butter is super delicious. You may also hear it called beurre noisette, which is the French term for it.
Sure,
and then I
read
read an article a while ago about toasting sugar, right?
Sure.
And what you can do is you roast sugar at like 300 degrees so it doesn't liquefy, but it does undergo like a chemical change, and you get a sort of like caramelly, toasty. It's not quite as sweet. The flavor is a little bit rounder. It's delicious. And then, so I was like, okay, you can see where this is going, right? Beurre noisette, toasted sugar. And then I saw another article that was like, yo, guys, you can toast flour, right? You basically pan cook the flour, all right, over like medium-high heat, and it gets this like toasty, nutty taste to it. And I was just like, okay, dude, what if I made a cake? What if I do all of these things? So I make the beurre noisette. It's fantastic. I toast the sugar. It's fantastic. I toast the flour, and sure enough, it's got this like really rich, toasty, nutty. It smells great. I make the cake. Here's what I don't realize. That in heating the flour, I have done something that I did not anticipate to the chemical structure, possibly involving gluten. I'm not totally sure. But I make this cake, and when it's done baking, it's basically like a giant, very dense, like English muffin bread cake thing.
Is it? Did you desiccate the flour and then not put enough water in to account for that?
Maybe that was part of it. I did definitely desiccate the flour. I added a little extra liquid, maybe not enough. I don't know. It was a pretty liquidy batter when I was done with it, but it was like a very bad pancake.
Okay.
Like a thick, giant baked pan. I don't know. It was really bad. It was incredibly bad. I was about the flavor was okay, but it was not cake. Definitely it was not cake. I was really having trouble figuring out what to do with it. I ended up throwing a bunch of it away. Beth did have the suggestion. She's like, you should make bread pudding out of this. So I did make bread pudding out of it, and then I made a crème anglaise, and that turned out. Turning it into bread pudding actually really worked out because it was like a giant pancake bread pudding. And then I made crème anglaise, and crème anglaise is great on everything. So,
Dave, I love that at this
but it
point...
was...
Dave, I love...
It was absolutely a disaster.
You've been doing... we've been doing Bun Vulcan for a while. And mine has been mostly bread. Yours has been largely desserts. Not entirely, but largely. And I feel like you at this point have a working knowledge of 8 different kinds of custard and frosting that I try to, as you describe them, figure out what the difference between one and the other is. It was just halfway through your description, I'm like, okay, this one's a frosting, or right on, this one's a custard. You're like, oh, it's a crème anglaise, which is like a crème pâtissier. I'm like, I'm sure they are because they're both custards, and that sounds great. I don't know what the difference is, and I pay attention.
Yeah, creme anglaise is it is a very thin custard that you use to it's like a sauce. It's like custard sauce, basically.
It's very kind of you to assume that I'm going to be able to retain this information.
Yeah, so creme pâtissier is like custard, and then creme anglaise is like custard sauce. It's like pourable. You put it in a jug. The English love it. I think that's probably why it's called creme anglaise. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Anyways, Matt, that's Bun Vulcan. It took, a real long time. What, Matt, is our third star of the week?
Dave, speaking of things that took a real long time, it's a house update. Dave, as you said earlier, Mom and Dad were in town last week. We're like a week and a half. It was like they came up on a Thursday and left on a Sunday, and there was a week in between. And it's always great to have them here. They have been coming into town for extended periods specifically to help me with the house renovation because
it's been fantastic.
Yeah, and I need a lot of help with the house renovation because, as previously referenced, I don't know how to renovate a house. And they have done a lot of housework throughout the years. And Dad is very, they're both really, just very good at it. They both have their strengths, and I am willing to help them do it for me. Just because, I basically I feel like my job when they are there is to just okay, you know what you're doing, but some of the things you need are in the basement and some of them are on the 4th floor. And so I am just going to go up and down the stairs.
That's my job.
For a long time. I mean, that's not all I did. Obviously, I did a lot of other stuff. But it does kind of feel a little bit like I'm an assistant on the project of fixing my own house. Which, that is not a complaint. That is a compliment to their abilities to actually do this stuff. And I'm getting better at it.
Right.
But they came up for a week and a half, and we got a ton of stuff done. Ceilings, not all, but many of the ceilings have been painted. A bunch of ceiling fans have been installed. The walls, which were previously full of holes, are now less full of holes. There are still definitely holes all over, and some of the walls some of the walls are all whole still. But many of the holes have at least started to be filled with putty and spackle and stuff. We insulated the entire attic.
Wow.
Which was a lot. We received the delivery of, I think I calculated it out to 1,800 pounds of drywall. And dragged that all inside.
Cats.
Well, each sheet of drywall is about 50 pounds, and I got 36 sheets of drywall. And we cut a bunch of it up and we dragged some of it up to the ceiling. None of it's been installed yet. But we have that all in place. I'm sort of halfway on the other side of, I think I said last time we did this, I'm halfway on the other side of some of the permits getting signed off on. And what's really nice is that when you walk into the house now, enough positive action has been taken that it's beginning to feel oh, I can see what this is going to look like, as opposed to just oh, I can see how you have removed everything that was what this house used to look like.
Right. Now you've kind of, that's a big hump to get over, right?
Yeah, we dragged, straight up, we dragged 1,000 pounds of trash to the curb, just because there was a lot of trash in the house. Because when you take out walls, those walls are removed from the frame, the structure of the house, but they are not automatically removed from the house. The parts that used to be wall, and the parts, the pipes that used to be the plumbing before the new plumbing was there, those just don't get deleted from house. Those are still part of the general mass of everything that is included within the house. They're just no longer connected to anything or useful in any way. So we got rid of all that stuff. It was just, I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was very, like, it was good work. And, like, it does kind of feel like we've hit, I don't know if we've quite hit the tipping point, but we're like, I can see the tipping point from where we are, which is very encouraging.
Oh, dude, that's fantastic. No, for sure, for sure. I think once you get, I think the thing that's really going to do it for you is when you have a functional bathroom.
That's going to be huge. Honestly, the ceiling fans were big.
That's going to be huge.
Because they were like newly installed pieces of like house that I chose and purchased and we installed. And now there are like new functioning things that are in the house.
And it's a specific thing and not just like a hunk of drywall or like a wall that you would expect would be there anyways. You're like, I picked that fan. Here it is. It's in my house. No, it's dope, man.
I picked 2 of one and 1 of the other. They are good ceiling fans. We were talking about IKEA before. I went to IKEA with Mom and Dad on Sunday, or Saturday. It was Saturday because they left on Sunday.
It was Saturday, actually.
And so we had been working all week. We were over at the house, like doing some, fine tuning of some things, and I recommended, like, we've been going to Lowe's, we've been going to Home Depot, like. I'm sick of looking at the bathroom vanities at both of those stores because I don't like any of them. And I just keep hoping that when we go there, I'm finally going to not dislike one of them. And it hasn't happened yet. Yeah,
it's like the opening your fridge phenomenon.
Yeah. So, like, we go down to IKEA, and, it's like a 2-hour drive to get there. It's not nothing. But as soon as we walked in, I was, like, looking at other home goods other than the stuff I've been looking at for months. I was like, oh, yes, of course. Like, this is the vanity I want. This is the bathroom sink I want. Like, when you were down there with the twins 2 days later, I just, like, emailed you. Like, hey, if you're already at IKEA, in the time between leaving IKEA and getting home, I decided which one of the sinks I wanted to buy. Could you just pick that up for me? And you did.
It was a really funny, because it was a really funny email. Because I was like, I'm at IKEA. And because I just emailed their daily chain, and you were like, could you pick me up a kitchen sink? And I was like, that could be a joke, but it could also very reasonably be a genuine request.
And it was. It's a nice sink. You've seen it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your new sink, man.
Thank you. Picked up the faucet for me as well. Greatly appreciated. Anyway, Dave, what is our 4th star of the week?
So 4th star of the week, man, I'll make it fairly quick. I've been playing No Man's Sky.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm sure. I mean, everybody's heard of it at this point. But here's what I can say: when it first came out, something, But when it first came out, it was lauded. I was super excited to play it, and then it launched, and I just kind of didn't get it. And then everybody was like, "Oh, turns out this game is trash."
Yeah, it was not the game that was promised.
Yeah, but the people who make it, whose name I can't remember all of a sudden, have just kind of like kept making it. And I can report, I know you were playing it a little bit a while ago, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but it's a blast. Like, I am having so much fun playing this game. It's just infinite space Minecraft. I discovered, so I started out on this like Mars-like desert world. It's like awful. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's cool, right? I'm like finding stuff, but I'm like running around. I'm like, oh, this is rough. And then I found another planet, and it was like an acrid, corrosive, whatever. I finally got a hyperdrive. I jumped to the next system over, and I found a paradise planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I land, and it's all like bioluminescent flora and fauna and like waves and rolling hills, and I felt like genuine relief. It was like when you see the first buds of spring. Actually, you know what it was really like is when you find the oasis in Fallout New Vegas.
Oh yeah.
And you've just been running around the desert for this whole time, and then like you go in this one spot and there's green trees, and you're like, oh my gosh. Despite the fact that there are real green trees right outside my house, I get caught up in the fiction of the game. Anyways, No Man's Sky, it's infinite space Minecraft, huge recommend. Matt, what is our 5th star of the week?
Dave, our 5th star of the week, and I will make this brief, is it is another adventure in the Man About Town project. Dave, I've been going out about town, and I have made a realization. I've had a realization. So last Monday was Memorial Day. A friend of mine was having a cookout, so I went over there. There's a bunch of people I hadn't seen in a long time, but also some people that, like, I didn't really know that well. They were just people who were also at the same cookout. And what I've realized, both in that instance and other times when I've been out and about, is that for the last, 14 months or whatever, the only instance in which I was in proximity with, or in proximity to, and comfortable with other people who weren't wearing masks, they were people who I was very close to. Like, it was basically family and, like, a few very close friends, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there is, like, there's a closeness to those people. And what I've realized in being out in the world around people who aren't wearing masks is that I am projecting upon those people, like, a phantom, like, friendship level that does not exist.
It's just you don't have a mask. I don't have a mask.
So, yeah, like, I can see your nose and mouth, so clearly we went to college together, I guess. Like, and it's been very strange to try to, like, rein that back in, to be like, oh no, don't, like, that's a stranger. You don't know that person. Like, you might be introduced to that person, and maybe you'd, become friends, but, like, you cannot come into the conversation with that energy. That is not what is expected of you. That's it. That's really my my main observation recently from About Town. But Dave, speaking of observations, we have some about episode 42 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. Once again, it is called Lose Them, The Evil Pursuers, written by Junki Takagami, original air date December 14th, 1997. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about it. Okay, welcome back. Episode 42, Lose Them, The Evil Pursuers. I didn't mention this, but you could have watched along, if you wanted to, on the DVDs or at shoutfactorytv.com. And I definitely recommend it.
Oh, Matt.
Yes.
Speaking of shoutfactory.com, they have Mask now. Mobile Armaments Direct Command is on Shout Factory.
Dave, I feel like this is valuable content we could be hoarding until next week's stars.
Oh, good. I mean, that's all there is to say about it.
Okay.
Aside from that, this is, I guess, the last episode of the Super Sentai Brothers, because we're about to start a Mask podcast.
Yeah, probably. Tune in next week for the adventures of Matt Tracker. And, Dusty Hands?
Dave Tracker, I don't know.
No, I mean Matt Tracker.
Geez,
Matt Tracker was the name of the main character for Mask.
I know, but your name is Matt, and if we're starting a podcast about, then I should be also Dave Tracker, because you're Matt.
I understand. I apologize for denying the
So
bit.
anyway, so we start off at Moroboshi High School, where someone, I don't know who, I'm trying to decide if I want it to be Miku or Chisato or Kenta, but somebody has made and cut out, like, cartoon paper figures drawings of the Nezarangers.
Okay. Here's what I think, Dave. Here's my dream is that it was Koichiro. Because, like, they're like cartoonishly drawn, sort of. They're sort of like wiggly lines. They're not the work of a master draftsman. So I assume it's not Shun, because Shun would have done it up in CGI and
I was
going to
say, precise. That's the only thing we can know for sure, is that it's not him.
But Koichiro is the one who is dedicated to, like, using this villains board to, like, demonstrate who is still
it does
active.
now that you say it, it does definitely make sense that it's Koichiro.
Yeah, and, like, he's not great at drawing, but he's so
better.
dedicated to having, like, charts and graphs.
So he and then there's big red X's through Nezi Pink and Nezi Blue. But Kuchra's like, these are tough opponents. And He's sort of like monologuing about it, and Shun is like, I guess, trying to steal Kenta's noodles. I do have this is not even like a kid update or whatever. But my children do refer to noodles as nudes.
Okay, hilarious.
But it just makes for a lot of really funny conversation, because they sometimes want hot nudes and sometimes they want cold nudes, and it's just endlessly hilarious.
I was recently talking with someone, Dave, who until he was in college did not realize that ramen noodles were called ramen noodles, because at some point as a child it had locked into his name that they were called oodles of noodles, because that was like a brand of ramen in the 90s. And so when he went to college,
so he was just like, oh man, I love...
Yeah, they're like, hey, do you want some ramen noodles? He's like, I don't know what that is. And then they handed it to him. He's like, oh, oodles of noodles. I mean, I definitely did the same thing when I remember we went to Gettysburg as a family. We went to a restaurant, and the forks had 3 tines instead of 4. And our dad told us that those were called threeks. And
Dad was not much one for
subtle humor,
like lying to kids to make a joke. Yeah. No. That is an all-time fantastic dad
anyway,
joke.
I believed him
desperately hoping to run into a threek.
I believed him for years until it came up in conversation in college. I was like, oh, those are called threeks. And somebody looked at me. I'm like, oh, no, they're not. Never mind. Like, you don't even have to say it. I know what happened.
I'm desperately hoping to run into a threek at some point in my life with my children. Anyways, so Koichiro he's very frustrated because he's having like a very intense moment, because he's like, this is really bad. He's like, we're doing a good job, but like the Nezarangers are just getting more intense. Everybody's slacking off. Like, where is everybody? And the other guys mentioned, they're like, well, Miku is Christmas shopping. And Koichiro's like, what? Christmas shopping?
Ko hates the idea of her being Christmas shopping. We cut to Miku, who is just out and about, like walking through, I think it's raining, and she's like developing a cold.
I think it's just cold.
She sneezes.
But she's wondering.
And she's like, oh, I've sneezed. This must mean that Shun is talking about me. Now, here's the thing.
Or she very much hopes that this is the case.
Yeah, she says, like, I wonder if this means that Shun is talking about me. Here's the thing. There's no reason for her to assume that. I assume that's a superstition that I'm just not familiar with. However, at that very moment, Shun was talking about her, because he was telling Koichiro that she was out Christmas shopping. That is
absolutely true. Now, she is primarily out Christmas shopping because she is trying to figure out what she can get for Shun. What can she get for Shun? I believe she does use the phrase that will capture his heart. In case we've kind of forgotten about that subplot line. We go back to the high school, and Koichiro says, curse you, Miku, which seems very extreme.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, he goes up to 11 pretty quick on this.
Yeah. And he's like, the Nezarangers are getting stronger. Kenta, there's a weird moment where Kenta like tries to wipe. Well, I guess he doesn't try. He succeeds. He wipes off some like earwax on Shun, which Shun doesn't notice. Just a very odd thing to have put in the episode. But they look at each other. They're like, all right, well, this is getting very boring and we have other things to be doing. So like, let's just kind of try to quietly leave while he's monologuing.
Well, also,
they almost get out the door, of course.
Like, Koichiro was upset because Chisato and Mika weren't there. And so he's going into this huge lecture, but he's lecturing Kenta and Shun, who are there. And so they're like, why are we getting yelled at for this? We showed up. There's no reason for us to sit around and listen to him be mad. Like, we did what he wanted to. So now we're going to leave. And I guess he'll be mad about that later, but we won't be here to listen to it.
We flash from there to the Nezare dimension. Hinalar is, I wouldn't say he's freaking out, but he is very confused. And I dig this because this is I almost want to say a unique element of Dr. Hinalar's. Or maybe it's not unique, but we haven't quite seen anything like it since maybe like Die Ranger, where Dr. Hinalar is, obviously he's a villain, but he is primarily like a cerebral villain, right?
Yes.
Like he's got Ugande and Shibolina who are like out there mixing it up. He is a plotter and a thinker and an inventor and stuff. And so he's not raging out like we would have seen from Baron Mechanus or whatever that dude's name, Emperor Bacchus Wrath, or
Baron Mechanus
even
does
like
sound
Radigan.
cool, though.
Yeah, it does. All right, you guys can have that one for free. Or even like Radigan or something. But he's like, I don't get it. Like,
right,
you can tell that he's very much approaching this as like a science problem.
Right, and he's like, listen, he's not saying all of this, but this is, I think, what he's trying to get across. He's like, I am very smart. I created the Nezurangers, and I know that I'm better at creating costumed superheroes than Dr. Kubota is. Like, mine are better. They're stronger.
Not least
they're
of
more
which,
dedicated. They are, like, under my complete thrall. Like, I taught Dr. Kubota all he knows about building super suits.
Yeah,
or
that's
at least, like, I know more about
like,
them.
He
like,
worked on the Megaranger suits.
Yeah, he's like everything that I'm doing, like, I'm clever and a good inventor, and I have this plan, and the plan is perfect, but for some reason it's not working, and I can't figure out why it's not working, and it's infuriating. Now, the reason it's not working is because, like, the power of friendship or whatever, right? Like, it's because, like, the Mega Rangers are heroes.
No, but I dig it because it's this very quick moment, but they've done enough with Dr. Hinelar that you get all of this stuff from it. I really like Dr. Hinelar as a villain. I think at the end of the year he's gonna end up being very high on the list for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the remaining Nezurangers are like, listen, we get it. We know we've been losing, but it's cool, or at least it will be cool, because while we've been fighting, we have been getting data on the Rangers. We've recorded their voice prints. Yeah, we've recorded their voice prints. We've basically gotten all their biometric information. So even though we don't know what they look like, we absolutely are going to be able to figure out who they are.
Yeah, like, we don't need to know what their faces look like. If we see them move and we hear them talk, we will be able to know who they are and strike. And Dr. Hinelar is like, hey, great. You came up with your own plan. You're showing some initiative. Like, you are my big, like, having you guys win is my big plan. And it seems like you guys are making some moves, so go for it.
Are working on it, so great job.
They teleport down to Earth, and they unhenshin because apparently these dudes have human forms. These dudes have very stylish, attractive human forms.
I did not actually get the vibe that this was them turning into their human form. Like, I got the sense that this was them, like, using a human disguise.
That is very probably the case. But, like, they just have great outfits. And I did not take notes exactly on, like, what those outfits are, so I'm not going to, like, just sit here and describe clothes to you. But, like, if you watch the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about.
They're dressed in all black. They look very cool. Yeah, they dressed in all
cool
black. They
and
look
evil
very
and
cool.
great.
Yeah, the dude who plays Neze Black looked so familiar for a few minutes. I actually went back and checked out the episode to see if he had done, like, anything else in Sentai. And he was in, like, Metal Hero, but not in any Super Sentai. So, like, okay. I don't know him from anything. But I was just like, dang, that dude looked familiar. That's a non-point. It was just, like, a very weird moment for me. Anyways, so they're just kind of looking around. We get one bit where Nezu Red hears Chisato, who is on the phone with Koichiro, talking about a Christmas party, and he, of course, is like, no way are we doing a Christmas party. So Nezu Yellow, like, runs over and grabs another girl who, like, matches the the height, weight, body type, whatever, Data, but it's not Chisato, who has like left around the corner at this point.
Mm-hmm. But Chisato sees this
Chisato's
happen.
like, yeah, and she's like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but like, I pretty much know what's going on here.
Yeah. So we cut back to the school. Koichiro, who hates parties, is lecturing Kenta and Shun again. Kenta and Shun are about to sneak out this time, but as they do, Chisato shows up, and she's like, hey, I just had a very bad experience. 3 people dressed all in black, who are pretty clearly the Nezirangers, grabbed somebody who they thought was me.
They're definitely the Nezirangers.
So, like, we need to be super careful because they have, like, honed in on our voices. And, like, she talks to Dr. Kubota, and Kubota's like, okay, you all need to sit tight. Like, don't go out. You don't want to be discovered. You don't want them to find out your identities.
It's too dangerous.
But Miku's not there. Like, Miku is still out in the world. And so, like, she is still very much in danger.
Yes. So they're like, we got to find Miku. And Kubota's like, no, like, sit tight. Like, we can't have you leave. And there's like this little back and forth. But Koichiro has the idea. He's like, oh, I know what we'll do. She still has her beeper.
Right.
So
we can't use the
they call her
digitizers
beeper
because we know that they've been able to track those transmissions before, but they're not just tracking
Yes.
her beeper.
Yeah.
Now, we should say that a beeper is a piece of technology. It's like a phone, but it can only it's like a phone if a phone couldn't make phone calls, but it could text, but it could only receive text messages.
It could receive texts.
Yeah.
I don't know how you... Did you just use the keypad to, like, send a message to a beeper? I literally have no idea.
You know, beepers are in that weird window where, like, I'm old enough that I remember them, but I'm too young to have ever had them. Like, other people I knew my age did have beepers, but, like, I was not a sort of person who, like, had personal technology at the time.
Right. Well,
because
you're too young / not a physician, because the doctors
Right.
still use them.
Right. I am not a surgeon
Anyways,
or a drug dealer, so I didn't have a beeper.
So Miku calls in, like, she gets the thing, she calls back to the DRC, and Kuchu answers the phone, and he's like, don't speak. I know what you're thinking. Thank you. Got that joke in on the lag. So, dang, that album is so good. I don't like No Doubt, and I don't like almost literally anything else Gwen Stefani has ever done, but that album is an absolute banger.
Tragic Kingdom, I think, is... And I'm using a fairly specific definition on this, but I think Tragic Kingdom is a perfect album. Which is that, like, it is doing exactly what it wants to do, and every track is as good as every other track.
Yeah, it just
and, like,
is,
at a high
it
level.
really is killer. Yeah, it's a very, very good album. Anyways, so they kind of like, they just give Miku the lowdown. They're like, listen, you can't talk, you can't make any noise, they'll find you. Like, just get back to base, don't use a digitizer, get back to base as soon as you can. Miku looks around, sees a lot of people dressed all in black, gets very nervous. There's a couple of good little comedy bits here, which is kind of a fun interstitial where she keeps doing things where you would expect her to have to talk and then she doesn't talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she bumps into someone and, like, yells at her for bumping into him and expects an apology, but she just, like, winks and kisses him on the cheek and walks away instead. And somebody, like, picks up something that she had dropped and hands it to her, and she just, like, grabs it and scurries away.
Yeah, now I gotta say, the dude who was like, hey, you bumped into me, apologize, is definitely a grown man. And I gotta say, first of all, if a high school girl bumped into me, I would not, and didn't apologize, I would not then turn around and, like, yell at her about it.
Oh yeah, that guy's trash.
Yeah, that guy's very trash. But if for some reason I did, and then that high school girl came over and gave me a kiss, this dude is extra trash, because he gets all like, yeah, he gets all lovey-dovey. And my dude, that is not a situation where you should be lovey-dovey. That's extraordinarily uncomfortable.
No, that dude went from trash to like dumpster fire in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it's a real bad real bad cameo for that dude who was excited to get to be on Super Sentai. Anyways, so they're like, we're back to the research club. They're like, oh, we can ask Yusaku for help because he, like, they already knew who he is. So that's like a spent card. We can employ that again.
Right. They saw his face a few weeks ago.
We still don't. Yeah, but they're like, we still don't know where Miku is. Koichiro realizes, he's like, wait a minute. I heard the Ferris wheel when I was on the phone with her. So wherever she is, she at least can't be like too far from like the fun park.
So, cut to the commercial break, come back. Miku still keeping silent, having difficulty because, of course, earlier, we found out that she had a cold. And so she sneezes at some point, and that is like it's a near miss. They are able to like use the sneeze to track her voice engrams, which is a very sophisticated version of technology. Anyway, so Miku's standing on the street
that's
corner.
pretty impressive.
And she's looking across the street, and she sees two friends on this corner talking. One of them has a baby. That baby is in a stroller. If you've ever seen a baby in a stroller in an episode of Super Sentai, you know what's about to happen, because that baby stroller is going to start rolling directly into danger. Yeah,
which is, of course, precisely what happens. Miku, she is torn about what to do. She finally is like, I can't let this literal baby die. She calls out, they grab the baby. Nezaret immediately picks up on it and is like...
Now, she runs away, so they heard the voice, so they know that she's around, but they didn't see who made the noise, and so they don't want to just grab people at random, which is weird, actually, because earlier in the season, they had no compunctions about just going around town grabbing people at random, and
it was really weird.
Like, the fact that they're gun-shy about that in this episode, like, if it wasn't for that, there'd be no tension to the episode, right? Like, that is the tension of this episode, and they balance it well, but they never really explain why they care.
Yeah, it is very odd. It's like, isn't your whole goal to, like, murder all of humanity? Like, why does this possibly matter? But I guess they feel like maybe like the only thing I can think of is that maybe these are their sort of like human-ish forms, and they are trying to maintain like a degree of secrecy about it so that they can like continue to secretly appear as human. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, I'll accept that. I'll accept that.
So, they're like, we know she's close, just as they're about, and they actually do find her. And they're trying to get her to say something, and right before it kind of comes to a head, and weirdly, they don't just, like, poke her and see if she says something. They're really trying to, like, exert social pressure.
Yeah, like one of them tries to hand her a handkerchief, like, I believe that you dropped this. Is this yours? And she just, like, stares at them for a while. And then the other two come around the corner, like, menacing her about this handkerchief and whether or not it is
Shouldn't
hers.
you say thank you? It's very weird. Anyways, Yusaku kind of comes around the corner dressed up as Santa, and he's, like, doing a little dance and, like, handing out flyers for something. And there's a very weird little moment, which is he knows that it's them. And they know that it's him. But they don't know that he knows that it's them.
He knows that they know that it's him, but they don't know that he knows that they know that it's him.
Yes, and so he does not acknowledge them. So they hear, he like disappears around the corner. They hear Miku say something to him. Of course, she's still standing there, so it's not her. They give chase. And basically, Yuzuku has just strapped a stereo to the back of his bike and is just driving around playing a recording that they had of Miku's voice from something else.
Yeah.
So
this is not the first time they have fallen for a similar ruse. It's like they're very powerful and they have good plans, but they lack common sense. Like they have a lot of like analytical processing power, but they're not able to be like, oh, clearly somebody is messing with us.
Yeah. Okay. So they follow it to a deserted place. The Rangers show up.
Yeah, they have all reconvened. They have transformed so that there's never been a confirmation that Miku was the Pink Ranger.
Isn't right. Shun takes a moment to hit on Neza Yellow, which is pretty legit because she looks very good in her outfit. She's a pretty lady.
It's a good outfit.
And then there's some very good fighting. It's a good fight scene. One of the things that I thought was very cool about this fight scene is that the Neza Rangers all have combat styles that are not identical to their Ranger counterparts, but are very, very close. And so you do get some cool, like, sword versus sword, crescent staff versus crescent staff sort of combat choreography. And that's very well done.
The other thing I really like about this fight is that, like, they're very clear about the fact that the Nezi Rangers are more powerful than the Mega Rangers. But there are, at this point, 6 Mega Rangers and 3 Nezi Rangers. So even though individually the Nezi Rangers are stronger, like their force has been winnowed down to the point where the Mega Rangers, with their teamwork and coordination, are able to overcome the Nezi Rangers. Yeah,
it's really, really well done. They drop a move that they call Hyper Digital Formation, which is just where 3 Rangers jump over 3 other Rangers and then like kind of get a push boost and then hit the Neza Rangers. I have no idea why you would call that move Hyper Digital Formation, but they do. Well, they do because they're Mega Rangers and everything has a tech name.
It's a hyper formation and they are digital heroes. So there you go.
There you go. So basically, the Neza Rangers go down. We flash quickly to the Nezare dimension, and Javius is having a very, very bad day. Because remember, of course, the Neza Rangers draw their power from Javius. And Hindelar says, all right, man, it's time to pull out all the stops. I'm really, really sick of this. So he sort of like super activates the Neza Rangers, and they get up, and they turn into their monster forms, which all look incredibly cool. Yellow turns into Nezi Sophia, which I don't know why they chose that name for her, because she's like a weird, like, hornet bug spider monster.
Yeah, sort of.
And then Nezi Black becomes Nezi Vulgar, and he is a rad, like, earth elemental. It's an amazing costume.
Yeah, he's made out of mean rocks. It's very good.
Oh, dude, it's so cool. And then Neza Red becomes Neza Phantom, and he is like a fiery man themed monster.
Yeah. Now, at this point, they grow, and Kenta summons the Voyager machines. And I pause the episode to see how much time is left in the episode. And Dave and listeners, we are too far from the end of the episode for Mega Voyager to be effective. Like, if you call Mega Voyager and there are 4 minutes left in the episode, then Mega Voyager is going to destroy things very quickly. If you call Mega Voyager and there are 7 minutes left in the episode, Mega Voyager is about to have a bad day.
That's it. Extremely bad day. So, Nezi, I'm just going to call them Nezi by their colors still. Neza Yellow and Neza Red just grab Mega Voyager, and Black just starts like wailing on him, which is awesome. They get Delta Mega and
Mega Winger.
I can never remember Winger Spartan,
Mega Winger
Voyager, whatever Yusuke's thing is. Mega Winger, thank you. They get in the mix. It's it's a pretty good fight for a minute.
But again, that minute is still about 6 minutes from the end of the episode, which is not great for our heroes. Because there is time for it to go bad, and it does. Because what happens is that a Nezare energy warp portal opens. And there's a bit where like all the heroic robots like do their big cool moves and they knock over Nezi's red, yellow, and black. But then they just get back up. This warp portal opens and they just grab Mega Voyager and start dragging it into this portal. Dr. Kubota says, like, listen, that is about to be captured. You need to be concerned about your life and not, like, maintaining the integrity of this robot. Like, it's okay. Evacuate. We can regroup. Whatever. And that's fine with everybody. Except it is not fine with Kenta because Kenta has a unhealthy emotional relationship with these giant robots.
Yeah, he's like, no, we can't abandon Mega Voyager. And everyone's like, no, we do definitely need to. And he's like, no, but we can't. And then Koichiro's like, Kenta, I totally get it. And if that's how you feel, we're all with you. And then Kenta's like, yes. And then he turns away and Koichiro just like nerve chops him in the back of the head, knocks him out, and drags everybody out of Mega Voyager. I genuinely thought we were gearing up for like a heroic return and like something was going to happen.
Yeah, but my notes say Kenta can't abandon Mega Voyager, but Ko backs him up. Oh, he didn't. Defeat. And that's the end of my notes for this episode.
Yeah, that is in fact the end of the episode. Well, because this is a big old cliffhanger, and I think we're kind of getting into the territory where more of these episodes are going to be big cliffhangers than not, I would say.
Yeah. Now, weirdly, again, this feels like this could be the second to last episode of Megaranger, but this is episode 42, and there are 51 episodes of Megaranger. So, like, it's gonna keep going for a while, but this definitely feels like a fake-out, like, mini-climax. And it's good. It's very good. But it is over. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Of course, normally we would figure out where the monster that they fought this week lands in the Creature Royale, but none of the monsters they fight this week died. In fact, all of the monsters they fight this week won, which is not great for them. I mean, it's great for the monsters.
I was going to say,
not great
don't
for
see
the Mega Rangers.
A whole lot.
3 monsters, all victorious. Great day for the Nezare. And a great day for you, the listener, who got to listen to this. Another great episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you all that you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out the things that we're talking about on Twitter, we are at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. If you'd like to rate and review on there or subscribe, my understanding is that that is something that helps new people find the show, and I would like it if new people found the show. It's a good show. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. To find all of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth. Wow, that lag has really gotten pretty big.